Good afternoon. Welcome to This Week in Turkey. The ruling Justice and Development Party, AKP, kicked off its election campaign in Sivas today. Meanwhile, main opposition Republican People's Party, CHP, is going through a candidate crisis.
Main opposition Republican People's Party CHP's Secretary General Akif Hamzachebi announced his resignation in a tweet yesterday. While he did not state any reasons for his resignation in the tweet, according to a report by Cumhuriyet Daily, Hamzachebi had been complaining to his inner circle about his party's neglect for his opinions during the pre-election period. Several reports in the media further suggested that Hamzachebi was in disagreement with party chairman Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu over the candidates he had named for Küçükçekmece, Ataşehir, Maltepe and Kadıköy districts of Istanbul. Meanwhile, the Justice and Development Party AKP and the Nationalist Movement Party MHP have been evaluating the expansion of People's Alliance they have in place for the March 31st local elections with jointly compiled lists. President and AKP Chairman Recep Tayyip Erdoğan met MHP Chairman Devlet Bahçeli on Wednesday to discuss the alliance. However, no statements followed the meeting. According to a report published in Milliyet Daily yesterday, the two leaders focused on the ways in which they could obtain the majority of the municipal councils. President Erdoğan is expected to kick off election campaign rallies today, according to officials. Erdoğan will hold his first rally in the historic central province of Sivas, the local governor announced on Wednesday. We've been expecting the 100th anniversary of the Sivas Congress to be joyous and exciting, Salih Aydın told reporters, adding that Erdoğan's rally would commemorate the day the decisions known as National Pact, which fundamentally shaped the course of the Turkish War of Independence, were taken.
The pro-Kurdish People's Democratic Party, HDP, announced more mayoral candidates on Wednesday.
In a press conference at the party headquarters, HDP spokesperson Saruhan Oluç said the HDP considers the March 31st local elections as a democracy referendum. Oluç explained the strategy of the party for the local elections. There are no parties which we are in an open or hidden alliance with in the western cities, Oluç said. We do not have any tactical steps in the West. Our voters will cooperate with democracy forces in the ballot. This will be our basic approach in the West, he added. Following a question from a journalist if HDP may support CHP candidates in some metropolitan municipalities, Oluç said, "We will support the local democracy forces. Today, we do not nominate candidates for the metropolitan municipality of Gaziantep and will support the former mayor of Gaziantep, Celal Doğan. We will not nominate a candidate for Adıyaman either." At the end of the press conference, Oluç announced the mayoral candidates for Konya, Muğla, Denizli, Balıkesir, Ağrı, Bingöl, Siirt, Tunceli and Yalova. Oluç said that they will announce some mayoral candidates for the districts of Istanbul and Izmir later. HDP has already announced that it will not name any candidates for the metropolitan municipalities in Istanbul, Izmir and the southern metropolities of Adana. Party officials suggest that these political sacrifices are not intended to favor any party, but to contribute to the struggle for democracy in the country.
Joining us today to talk about the HDP strategy for the upcoming March 31st local elections is Ayşe Berktay, who is a member of the HDP's Party Assembly. Good afternoon, Ms. Berktay. Welcome to This Week in Turkey.
Good afternoon.
So we're told that your party won't be naming any candidates in a number of Western cities, most notably led by the three major metropolitan provinces of Istanbul, Izmir, and Adana. Yet it's known that HDP has a strong enough electoral base in some of these provinces. In fact, to give some numbers, in the June 24th parliamentary elections, HDP won 3 seats in Adana, 12 in Istanbul, and 2 in Izmir. So what's your party's aim with this move? Is this a tacit endorsement of the CHP's candidates, perhaps?
I wouldn't call it a tacit endorsement of CHP candidates. It's based on our strategy of we have a two-leg strategy, if I may say. One is in the Kurdish provinces, is to get rid of the state-appointed trustees in the Kurdish provinces. The second, and to get more win over more cities, more municipalities. But in the western part, it is the goal we have in our strategy. We have defined as making the AKP coalition lose. So it's more an open endorsement of democracy and opposition against the fascist regime right now. I would call it that. It's not. We have not announced any alliance or anything with CHP, but we are moving with our party representations in the city, party organizations in different cities, and we have made a lot of work studies on what are popular voter base wants in these parts, and also not just our voter base, but with a broad range of voters. We have made feasibility studies, and that is the demand. The demand there is to get rid of this, to put a block before this regime getting further settled and anchored in the West in the local elections. Mm-hmm. I would rather name it that. Mm-hmm.
And another rather surprising move by your party is in this pre-election period is its decision to nominate candidates in every district or province that E-Party, Good Party candidates are running. So my question to you is, what is the HDP's problem with the Good Party?
It's not a problem with the Good Party or with a person. It is a matter of the principles we have set forth as we will be supporting all democratic candidates and candidates that endorse the democratic principles that are evident in itself, like recognition of the Kurdish rights, Kurdish people's rights, and normal human rights, and rights such as the ecology perspective, women's equality perspective, women's freedom perspective. So it's a matter of what the Good Party represents. It doesn't represent something. It doesn't represent a move towards more democracy. It's more engaged with, although it is different it's a different party from the MHP and the AKP. It is engaged in the policies that deny the existence of the Kurdish population, that deny their rights, and that further is engaged in escalating the polarization in the country, as we have seen what they did in Uyghur. They just came out and pronounced the fact that HDP may win as a regime problem. So our electoral basis also would not like to support the Good Party.
So, as you've just told us, as you've just explained, there stands quite a clear and solid ideological difference between your party, the HDP, and the Good Party. Yet President Erdogan and MHP leader Devlet Bahçeli have made repeated remarks about the HDP being in a secret alliance with the CHP, the Good Party, and the Islamist Felicity Party. What's your party's response to these secret alliance claims?
Our response is that we are a very transparent party. We do not have any secret alliances. If we have an alliance, we pronounce it openly. It's not this is their tactic. This is the Devlet Bahçeli's and the AKP regime's tactic of trying to isolate HDP and to demonize HDP, to present it as an illegal, something illegal, something that they are trying to accuse the other parties of having contact with HDP. This is not a democratic way, trying to exclude a party that is legally the parliament and trying to make, they do not give any space, they do not allow the media to give any space to HDP, but they keep talking about HDP. That's the basic problem. It also shows, I think, it also shows that's what they have feared. Our strategy of making our position, putting our position not as one of trying to get more gains for our party as a party in itself, but trying to think of it as what is the best for Turkey in terms of what Turkey needs and what is the best for Turkey. And we are taking it's not a collective step. It's we're doing this on our own. It's not something collectively decided or collectively planned with other parties. We are just doing it a single-sided. We're taking a single-sided step for what we believe is the good of democracy and for the future of the society in Turkey.
So now let's try to take a more detailed look at your party's election strategy. HDP has a history with the Democratic Regions Party, known in Turkish with the Turkish abbreviation DBP, which was formed shortly after the 2014 local elections. But this time the HDP seems to be the only the sole political force aiming to influence the Kurdish voters in the Kurdish majority provinces. Is this a deliberate strategy, and if so, how do you explain it?
It's more a technical issue, not a deliberate. I mean, it's in 2014, HDP was a very new party. DBP is a component of HDP, as a large, big component of HDP, as you know, and DBP, although it was recently formed, it had its history from BDP. You know, it was DTP, BDP, and then DBP. We had DBP. It had its organization there, the DBP, and HDP was very new, and we only participated in the local elections in the places that we were organized more. And HDP was not organized in the Kurdish region then, very organized. So we had to, we participated as two parties, one in the Kurdish region and one in the Western region. But now we are organized, we have a 5-year history right now. So we are organized all over the area. And so there's nothing that would prevent us from entering the elections as HDP. It was a technical issue.
Finally, Ms. Berktay, President Erdogan has made it very clear from day one that state-appointed trustees could be a possibility in HDP1 municipalities. Yeah. How does this possibility affect your voter base? Could this perhaps lead Kurdish voters to boycott the elections?
No. On the other hand, I think it is a backlash. They should have expected this. You know, you do not threatening the Kurdish population, threatening our voters does not work with them. It just gives the very opposite result. Our voters are very determined, and they are angry about this. It's not that they would boycott the elections, but they are very intent and very decided to get back all these places from the trustee, all these municipalities, and make it even more to increase. We used to have 102 municipalities, and we are now aiming at around 130. It makes them even more determined. It makes our voters have reached a point where they consider it an issue of their pride, an issue of honor to restate, to make the statement and underline it even more, to emphasize it even more, that our political will is in this way, and this is who the people. These are the people who we elect, and and we will go on and prove it to you. You will not. It's not an issue of. We are not customers. You know, there are voters. They say we are not customers, and the municipalities are not providing service for customers. We are not customers of their service. We are people of our own free will, and we decide how we govern the cities where we live.
Thank you very much, Ms. Berktay, for your comments and for being with us today. We were joined by Ayşe Berktay, and she answered our questions on the HDP strategy for the upcoming local elections. And now we'll continue with our next news video. According to the Turkish Statistical Institute, consumer prices in Turkey rose by 1.06 points in January, bringing the annual inflation rate up to 20.35%.
The highest monthly increase was in food and non-alcoholic beverages with 6.43%. The indices rose for miscellaneous goods and services 3.62%, for health 3.56%, for recreation and culture 3.18%, and for hotels, cafes and restaurants 1.07%. After data was published, Treasury and Finance Minister Berat Albayrak identified inflation as one of the vulnerabilities of Turkish economy and said the government is fighting against inflation with determination. We have started taking short, medium and long-term steps on food inflation. We will not allow some to extend their hands and reach into the pockets of our citizens to take advantage of the situation, Albayrak said in a speech at the Turkish Exporters Assembly. Minister Albayrak also announced that the municipalities will start selling vegetables and fruits next week directly to consumers in an effort to curb the prices. In the meantime, state-owned lender Ziraat will unveil a package designed to support greenhouse farming. The Central Bank of Turkey had announced last week that it will maintain its tight monetary stance until it is convinced that inflation is falling. Turkish Trade Ministry also announced early in the week that Turkey's trade deficit shrank by 72% in January as imports continued a slump sparked by a currency crisis last year. Imports decreased by 27% to $15.7 billion, while exports rose 5.9% to $13.2 billion. Meanwhile, according to Bloomberg, Turkey's largely dormant sovereign wealth fund hired Citigroup and Industrial Commercial Bank of China to coordinate a €1 million syndicated loan.
President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said on Sunday that Turkey and Syria have been conducting foreign policy in low-level contacts through its intelligence agency with the Syrian government.
Turkey and Syria conducts foreign policy on low levels, Erdogan said in an interview with public broadcaster TRT late Sunday. Intelligence agencies cannot behave like leaders. Leaders can decide to exclude themselves but can also use intelligence agencies to maintain relations for their own interests, he said. Even if it's your enemy, you will not entirely break ties in case you might need them, Erdogan added. Presidential spokesman Ibrahim Kalın also said on Monday that Turkish intelligence departments may sometimes have contacts with various regime elements, including the Damascus government, in the framework of Turkey's security and the overall safety of Turkish operations in Syria. However, he added, this does not mean that Turkey recognizes the legitimacy of the regime. Erdogan's comments are the first time he has confirmed direct low-level talks with Damascus. The last political visit from Ankara to Damascus was paid by former Foreign Minister Ahmet Davutoğlu in 2011. Furthermore, Erdogan showed the negotiated security zone on the map, which he said would stretch from Jarablus in northern Syria to the Iraq border. Erdogan urged the US, a NATO ally, to hand over the zone's security to Turkish troops. Turkey is ready to run the security zone together with the US, he said, but we cannot leave it to coalition forces because we need to feel safe. We cannot trust coalition forces. They have neither troops to ensure the security there nor logistical means, the president said.
Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras arrived in Turkey on Tuesday for a two-day visit.
The visit follows a groundbreaking visit by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to Greece in December 2017, the first by a Turkish president in 65 years. The two leaders met again last July on the sidelines of the NATO summit meeting after Erdogan's re-election to presidency. His visit to the Halki Seminary on the island would be the first by a serving Greek prime minister in 90 years. Once the center of Greek learning in the region, the seminary was shut down by the Turkish government in 1971. For more than a century, the Halki Seminary trained generations of Orthodox clerics and leaders, including the current Patriarch Bartolomeo. The two nations, both NATO members, still have many long-standing disagreements, including conflicts over territory and energy rights in the Aegean Sea, as well as the decades-old dispute over northern Cyprus. Turkey is also seeking the extradition of 8 Turkish soldiers accused by Mr. Erdogan's government of backing the failed coup of 2016. The soldiers fled to Greece and requested asylum. Tsipras said that his relationship with Erdogan had been challenged in very difficult moments, the state-owned Anadolu Agency reported. But it allowed us to consolidate channels of communication on many levels, to overcome obstacles, and to be able, today, to speak of a positive agenda, he added. Presidential spokesman Ibrahim Kalın welcomed the visit and commended Tsipras' attitude toward the relationship. The approach is positive with good intentions, Kalın said at a news briefing on Monday. We believe the meetings tomorrow will be held under this framework. Speaking to reporters on Tuesday, President Erdogan made no commitment on the seminary, but reminisced fondly about visiting its famed library when he was a student at an Islamic religious school in Istanbul. Tsipras, on the other hand, said he hoped to visit again to attend the reopening of the seminary with Erdogan. The reopening of the school will not be a point or a message of discord or dispute, or differentiation or division, but it will be a message of friendship, mutual understanding, and brotherhood between our two peoples, he said. In comments to journalists, Mr. Kalın said, "We have a common understanding of this and we hope we will be able to take some steps to make it happen." Mr. Erdogan has insisted, however, that the issue will be resolved with a reciprocal gesture by Greece to meet the concerns of the Muslim minority in Greece. In particular, he wants Greece to allow Muslims in Western Thrace to elect their own religious leaders, known as muftis. On Tuesday, he also called for the extradition of 8 Turkish military officers who escaped to Greece at the time of the failed coup in 2016 and requested asylum. Mr. Tsipras said he could not interfere with the courts deciding their fates, but added that Greece did not want to harbor coup plotters.
6 people were killed and 10 were wounded after an 8-story residential building collapsed in Istanbul on Wednesday.
It was not immediately clear why the building in Kartal district on the Asian side of the city had collapsed. Istanbul Governor Ali Yerlikaya told reporters at the site that 43 people were registered in 14 apartments at the address, but that the top of the 3 floors of the building had been built illegally. Yerlikaya also said there was a textile workshop on the ground floor that was operating without a license. The chairman for Turkey's Disaster and Emergency Management Authority said search and rescue operations were underway. Roads leading to the building were blocked by vehicles and crowds.
That's all from This Week in Turkey. Thanks for tuning in and hope to see you again next Friday at 5 p.m. Goodbye.